Hello and welcome to The Last Mixtape. My name's Stephen White, and on this week's show, we delve into Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me, and what it says about fame today, and the latest music from the week that was. But first, in the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Not my words, but the words of American pop artist Andy Warhol. Why, Stephen, I hear you ask, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, are you quoting pop artist Andy Warhol at the beginning of this week's show? Well, I thought we'd delve into U2's often forgotten classic, Hold Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, Thrill Me, and what it says about how being a successful artist means taking on all the trappings of fame. As always at the beginning of this week's episode, I want to say that this is entirely a vibes-based video/podcast, and we delve into music and culture a little bit differently here through a different type of lens. So when it comes to the in-depth who said who to what and who had breakfast with whom when something was recorded, I don't know. This is more about a discussion about the cultural impact or what a song or a piece of music says about us today. Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me was written during the Zooropa sessions but left unfinished. It comes from a time when Bono had fully embraced the idea of rock star personas, particularly with The Fly, his leather-clad, oversized shades-wearing Jim Morrison meets Elvis alter ego. Morrison and Elvis weren't just inspirations, they were warnings. Both men were devoured by their own mythology, trapped by the image they had created. Bono saw the writing on the wall. Rock stars don't get to control their own narratives forever. The song was finally dusted off in 1995 for the Batman Forever soundtrack, a film all about dual identities, masks, and the consequences of playing a role for too long. The lyrics too are dripping with the self-awareness that U2 had during the 1990s. From the character of The Fly to this point here, the meta-criticism of fame itself is interlinked with U2's music at the time. The cynical edge of lyrics like, you don't know how you got here, you know you just want out, are dripping with the cynicism of the song itself and the aforementioned metacriticism of U2 at the time. The song is about being trapped in an image of which you cannot escape, one that is interlinked with your art and your persona. Are you who you present yourself to be to the audience and the public at large? And is the real you still there inside? Can you escape them both? Are they homoousian? Are they of the same stuff? The title itself is a warning about the fleeting flickers of fame itself. To be loved, to be used, and to be ultimately discarded when the time comes. Musically, the song has the kind of glam, pop, rock swagger that really has U2 and some of their best moments when they go for the all-out rock song. It itself is a kind of a pastiche within the genre and of the time of U2's music. It does bridge the gap in a lot of ways between Zooropa and what would ultimately happen with pop. The process sound, the big sound of U2, a million miles away in many respects from the Joshua Tree, not too far away from Achtung Baby, still a little bit closer to, as I say, Zooropa, but not a million miles away from Discotheque, which would come a couple of years later. Music itself has that glam rock stomp to it, but underneath it has an air of tension to it. It's the kind of excess that eats you alive. The Edge's riff just rocks through the entire thing and pulls you ever closer, whilst the strings on the outside of the production add a sense of drama to the music. And once again, Bono commands the centre stage as he does with many U2 songs with an incredible performance, embodying the character of the song and in a lot of ways embodying what The Fly and Mephisto were to him during the previous tours. The Batman Forever connection is perfect because the movie is about duality, masks, and playing a role for too long. The music video makes this explicit. Bono plays an animated version of Mephisto, a decadent rock star consumed by his own fame. In the end, he's killed by himself. U2 weren't just writing about fame, they were making a meta-statement about the industry they were part of. And that's where today's artists are too. Even those who tried to resist fame's pull, like Billie Eilish, Phoebe Bridgers or Chappell Roan, still have to play the game to survive. Chappell Roan has openly spoken about the pressures of sudden fame, how the industry demands artists to be always on and constantly market themselves. She's playing the game, but there's still a clear struggle between loving the spotlight and fearing what it takes from you. Sound familiar? It's the same struggle Bono was writing about 30 years ago. If the 90s rock star was an artist trying to outrun their own ego, today's version is an artist trying to outrun their own brand. And the deal with fame? Once you sign it, you never really get to walk away. And that's what's drawn me to Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me as a song. It's not only one of my favourite U2 songs, and for a while I kind of saw it as a guilty pleasure almost amongst their oeuvre, but I've always been drawn to it, and indeed that character within it, and what it has to say about fame, and what it has to say about the role of the musician and the artist within that sphere. The trappings of it, and does the artist ever kind of come out, and do they ever kind of survive from that kind of feeling? Why I think it's like an often overlooked track in the U2 back catalogue, although it is on, as I say, the best ofs, and it's been played not similarly regularly on their kind of live shows and stuff like that, is that it's during kind of a different time for the band, and kind of a fraught time in a lot of ways, in between Zeropa and Pop, albums like that. It's kind of U2's big stylistic push during the 90s. It's interesting, in the Bono book Surrender, he speaks about the idea of not wanting U2 to become an 80s band and to be remembered as just an 80s band. And they were still fighting for not just their relevance within the 90s, but a legacy, as it were. This period in time obviously isn't looked at in the same way as Joshua Tree and Unforgettable Fire, Rattle and Hum, kind of things like that, or even Achtung Baby. But it is, I think, their big stylistic push. And it's this very interesting thing that there's this interesting pop art, as you say, pop art tour, and even Zoo TV, this kind of the feeling of the idea of fame being all encompassing and surrounding them, and surrounding, I think, life, as it were. We're moving into an era, we're not too far away removed from reality television. We're not too far removed from like 24/7, 100 million channels and everything. The internet is looming, as it were, as a real entity in social society just over the horizon. What we talked about artists today, it was also looming over. The lens in which artists and musicians are looked at would become even longer and wider, and for a longer period of time. Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me can often be just seen as the song that was on the Batman Forever soundtrack, or even like a bit of a stomper, as it comes to U2 live shows. But I think there's, like a lot of the music at that time, and a lot about what they were putting out at that time, it had a lot to say. And I think I had a lot to say, maybe more specifically about Bono in a lot of ways, about maybe how he was feeling about the trappings of fame, the interesting thing of him leaning into that with the Fly character or with Mephisto, kind of embracing it, almost to reject it, almost to kind of put a criticism forth on it. It's interesting that like part of the character of the Fly is based on Jim Morrison and Lou Reed, two people who were interlinked with Andy Warhol and the factory and themselves. I believe Jim Morrison knew Andy Warhol, I should say, not as much as Lou Reed obviously did, but they were kind of linked in with the time and the kind of the idea of the icon of fame, the iconography, and how we look about fame, how we look on fame now with people. We're talking, as I say, about Chaperone and people like that, the lens in which we look at it, and the way that can be discarded. We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago on the show as well, how you can one moment be the hot new young thing, and the next moment you're completely gone. You're no longer what people want. People have moved on. It's kind of that fleeting element of it. The idea that that's the fame part. For a lot of these artists, they could make their best work after that. They could be still making essential work after the huge crowds move away or anything like that. But it's kind of like the barometer of success is warped in many ways. That success is interlinked with fame, it's interlinked with sales, it's interlinked with big crowds, what it is to be successful as an artist, what you may have to give away, whether you want to or not. There's probably plenty of artists, film stars, musicians, everyone who like that, who would prefer just to make their art, go and play in front of crowds and do their thing and not have the other thing going on, the other side of it going on, the parasocial side of it going on, the pressures of having to constantly now engage in kind of social media and things like that. And that's not bad, to be able to engage with your fans, and I think a lot of artists are actually quite good at it, and it kind of helps in a lot of ways. But that endeavor must be quite unhealthy. You think, again, as we say, about the Chaperone thing, and when she said, like, please, stop throwing phones in my face if you see me walking down the street and I'm just with my friends. I think that's a completely fair thing to ask for. I think it's a completely fair thing to want as an artist. You shouldn't be kind of put in a cage. And a lot of people will say, well, that's the deal, you know, and that's probably what Bono's talking about in the song, is like, this is, you know, this part of it, and whether you want it or not. But I don't know. I think it's you know, again, art is interesting in that that's one of the few things. I think sports is another one. Like if you're a popular sports star and film stars, it's this interesting thing that it's almost like the price of admission. And it's interesting how Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me plays into that idea of the fleetingness of all of this, and how uncertain it is, and how it can affect the artist, you know. They want you to play Jesus, they go down one knee, but they'll want their money back if you're alive at 33, is such a great lyric. One of Bono's best, I think. I really like that, because it plays into that idea of, well, some people might be like, well, you didn't give everything. You know, all these other people went away, and you're still making art, and you're older. What's that about? No, we want this, you know. And I think it's interesting. I think it says a lot about art. I think it says a lot about music, and it's interesting that. And I obviously did it on other songs, but it's interesting that this kind of what for me is, and as I say at the beginning, this is one of my favorite U2 songs. But it's this little diamond of a track hidden away within the ultimate, you know, shadow of U2, which is the you know, the bigger songs and the better songs or whatever. But it's an interesting song that gives, I think, a real interesting insight into this period in time for both them as a band, but us as a society as well, and where we were going. In terms of music and in terms of our relationship with artists. Warhol's prediction is now more relevant than ever. Back then, stars burnt out on their own excess. Now, they burn out under the constant demand for content. Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me wasn't just about rock stars in the 90s. It was about what happens when your identity becomes a product and the world decides it doesn't need you anymore. Maybe Bono wasn't just playing a role of a doomed rock star. Maybe he was warning us of the game itself being rigged. Indeed, to borrow a line from the beginning of this episode and the great Andy Warhol, in the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. But what happens when those 15 minutes are up, and what does it take from the artists themselves? Let me know in the comments below. Is this one of your favourite U2 songs? Is it one of the worst U2 songs? Is it the worst period of U2? Is this the best period of U2? What do you think about this era? What do you think about this song? Does it prophesize a lot of what will follow? Does it reflect a lot of what happens maybe to U2 as a band in the future after this song? It's a very interesting period in time, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So please subscribe and like and comment below.